the season-ending press conference, Arturas Karnišovas asked for patience from Bulls fans and also mentioned the summer of 2026 where he felt the team was going to have flexibility. On today's episode, I want to talk about the things that are going to determine this year, this summer, the summer of 2025, and that could actually cause the Bulls to jumpstart a little bit into the summer of 26 plans. We're going to talk about all that, plus continue our season grades and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. I want to start off with, this is going to be the majority of the episode, is the Bulls plan of 2025, right? Now, coming into this offseason, especially with the words from Arturas, I didn't expect a lot of activity. Now, we've, of course, heard trade rumors drum up about the Bulls being open to moving Nikola Vučević and Zach Collins, actively shopping those guys, as well as maybe some openness to move other parts of the roster. I've talked about it. The Bulls have close to $81 million in expiring contracts. Now, that is also including Josh Giddey, who's going to sign a contract extension, and Coby White, who's they're probably not going to move. But they do have $81 million in expiring contracts. So that gave them a little bit of flexibility. They also have a trade exception as well. They'll have the mid-level exception this year. And so they have a little bit of latitude here to maneuver around. Now, one of the things that could definitely affect that is how much cap space they want to make sure they have in the summer of 26. Not only because they got to re-sign Coby and Ayo possibly, but also a pursuit of another free agent. And I think that's going to be the key thing here. But what are the things that are going to determine this offseason for the Chicago Bulls? I think the first thing that we got to look at is what's coming up on Monday, this upcoming Monday, and that's the draft lottery. Lottery luck could really change this path for the Chicago Bulls quite considerably, to be 100% honest with you. If the Bulls were to get lucky and get into the top 4 of this draft, much less the number 1 overall, which I'm not expecting at all, tempering those expectations. Shout out to my boy Brian, who has getting the number 1 overall pick as part of like his overall plan, to improve the Chicago Bulls. But just if the Bulls were to get lucky and get into the top 4, right? And that means that they have any of Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, Trey Johnson. Those are the guys that I have in my top 5, in the draft. And if they get any of those guys, I think they pretty considerably change the plans for the Chicago Bulls, mainly because 4 out of those guys are out of those 5 guys are guards or small forwards, right, or wings. So that would change something considerably. So that's what you got to look at, right? And you got Cooper Flagg, of course, who can play the 4. Some people even think he may be able to play the 3 at the next level. I don't necessarily think that's going to be his position, but that could drastically change some things for you if the Bulls get lottery luck. I do think you could see an offseason in which they get a little bit more aggressive in moving some of these extraneous pieces on this roster rather than keep them and try to lock in people now, for example, right? So, for example, the Bulls get in the top 4. I think that Jonathan Kuminga trade rumor that you heard, that's all done. I think that's done at that point, right? Because if you're getting Ace Bailey, if you're getting VJ Edgecombe, if you're getting Trey Johnson, I don't see a world in which you need to trade for Jonathan Kuminga. Hell, even if it's Cooper Flagg, I don't see a way in which you need to trade for Jonathan Kuminga at that point, right? I just don't see that happening. So, that changes some things. Then are you more apt to move Vučević for anything, right? And just say, hey, basically, we got these extra pieces. How many second-round, first-round picks can we get combined between these guys? Let's start moving these guys out, right? Clearing out that space. And while Billy Donovan is a coach that does not play rookies very early on, I do think if you get one of these top 5 guys in this draft, I think that they kind of warrant that a little bit, right? I know, shout out to, the Discord where we have a couple of people, but I don't think that like a Trey Johnson, for example, he's going to play. I don't think that, he may not start, especially with Coby on this roster, but he's going to play. And so, you have those things to look out for. But that's not something that you can bet on, right? Like, of course, you start shifting your plans if you get that lottery luck, but it's not guaranteed that they will, right? So, the most likely scenario is that the Bulls still pick at 12. But if the Bulls get a top 4 pick in this draft, make no mistake, that drastically changes things, because I also think that changes your timeline a bit because you have more faith, right? You hope that one of those guys are going to turn into your star. But let's be clear here. Most top 4 picks, even if they do become that star level player, right? They don't have their team in title contention for 3, 4, sometimes even 5 years for number 1 overall picks before they're there. Tim Duncan aside, he's special. He came into a special situation as well, right? So, that's the thing that you're looking for. And I'm not somebody who thinks, boom, you get Cooper Flagg, oh my God, we're all of a sudden going to be a contender. No, we better damn well be a playoff team, but I don't think we're a contender at that point in time, right? You got to let things develop and see how they're going to go, have things mesh well together. But, so lottery luck can absolutely flip the Bulls' summer plans up on its head in a positive way, right? Now, that's unlikely, 1.7% chance, but let's hope that it's going to happen, right? And then the next one that could dictate the Bulls' summer is, what do they get back in these trades, right? Like a Vučević or whatever, a trade for Jonathan Kuminga, I do think that it changes what you're trying to do quite considerably. Not saying that Jonathan Kuminga himself is some game-changing player that automatically puts the Bulls on XYZ path. It gets you another player that has the potential to grow their game and develop some under the Chicago Bulls for sure and have a larger opportunity than what he had with the Warriors. But I don't think that it puts you, but it affects your money that you have going forward, right? It affects your money. What does that then mean for Kobe, Ayo? What does that mean? Seen people ask, like, well, if we trade for Kuminga, does that mean Kobe's automatically gone? No, the Bulls still would have considerable cap space, enough to sign near max free agent money, but it could affect, I think, one of 3 things. If you get Jonathan Kuminga, one of 3 things has to happen with you. Well, it affects your ability to do one of 3 things. Re-signing Kobe, re-signing Ayo. How much does it go into your summer of 2026 trying to get a max free agent type money, right? Those are the 3 things that you can't have all 3 of them at that point. You just can't. You can't re-sign Kobe. You can't re-sign Ayo and sign a free agent in the summer of a big free agent in the summer of 2026. Or you can re-sign Kobe. You can sign a free agent in the summer of 2026, but you may not be able to re-sign Ayo, right? So any combination of those 2 things gets a little bit difficult, right? But you can still probably do 2 out of those 3 things. You just have to manage your money and be willing to then fill out. You better be very confident in who your roster is at that point, because then you have to fill it out with basically close to vet minimum players. So that's what the Bulls would have to do if that ends up being the case. So, but I think the trades, how active are they on the trade market? I didn't initially expect this Bulls team to be very active in the trade market this offseason at all, if I'm being 100% honest. I thought that was going to be a pretty straightforward offseason, that you probably would try to move Vučević, but that's it. But like hearing that, Zach Collins is also on the trade block, that they're not adverse to moving Kevin Huerter, right? They're not adverse to getting aggressive if it comes down to it, if they see and identify a guy that they want to go after. That's the biggest if here, right? Like, I do think there's going to be a lot of movement this offseason. And I'm not saying for the Bulls. I'm saying overall in the league, I expect there to be this feels like an offseason between the draft and other things, that this is going to be an offseason where a lot of movement gets done. We already know the Rockets are looking. The Orlando Magic are going to be looking for trades, right? The Brooklyn Nets could be looking to sell off some of their roster. The Portland Trailblazers could be looking to acquire while also selling off veterans, right? And then you have teams that pick lower. The Brooklyn Nets have 2 picks at 26 and 27 in this draft that they could very well look to combine up to move, right? Or teams that are, teams that are pretty decent could be looking to get those picks, right? You got teams like the Clippers. They're at the bottom of it. They could be looking to add something like the Miami Heat, right? So you have a lot of teams that I think could be looking to maneuver and get some things in this not only in this draft, but in this offseason, and how the draft and the offseason go hand in hand, right? Because I think you're going to see some of these teams that pick lower, and they may be willing to move off of their pick because they want something more assured. Like, let's say the Minnesota Timberwolves, for example. Let's say Anthony Edwards gets this team into the Western Conference Finals. What if they don't want to pick at 17? What if they want to use that 17th pick to maneuver to get a veteran in here, whether it's to the bench or in that starting lineup, to help that team get further and try to make it to the finals next year, right? So there's going to be a lot of fluidity, I think, in this draft, considerable fluidity, actually, throughout this offseason, where a lot of movement's down. How well can the Bulls play a part into that? Keep in mind, expiring contracts. They can be the third team to try to gain some assets. They can be the third team to try to take on a player that maybe the other teams don't want. Like, there's a lot of different ways that the Bulls can use their expiring contracts this offseason. Now, that comes down to AK actually being aggressive and forward-thinking as a GM, which is held him back some in his tenure here. But if this Bulls team sees trades that are beneficial to either their present or their future and helps that outlook look clear, then I think that you could see that kind of mold this offseason for the Bulls, and then how that plays in also into the draft lottery. Because if the Bulls do get lottery luck, right, where they move into that top 4, that can make players like Kevin Huerter more expendable, right? That could make them say, all right, bet we got this guy that we really do think is going to be a star in 2 or 3 years. Let's go ahead and start setting up to where we can get some additional assets later down the road, because this team may have us in the playoffs to where we are picking in the 20s. So let's go ahead and get some to where we can have multiple picks in 2028 draft or whatever it is. That way you're forward thinking, right? So that would be kind of how this offseason could go, and one of the things that could absolutely kind of dictate and change this path of this offseason for the Bulls. And then lastly, it's the faith in the roster. I think that this, as much as AK's talked about patience and talked about development and talked about these things, we're going to see how much this Bulls front office really believes in that this offseason, right? How much faith do they have in what Kobe and Josh Giddey did last season? How much faith do they have that could be how close this team could be to playing like that for the majority of the season? I think that's going to play a huge role in this, because if you see the team go out and acquire somebody like a Kuminga or acquire another veteran piece or whatever it is, or even hold on to some veteran pieces, that could be a sign that, hey, we think that this team can be a playoff team and not play-in team, and therefore we don't really want to mess up the chemistry too much. And that's something that we've seen AK do before, and it's honestly one of the more terrifying things, right? I want them to have faith, because I want Giddey and Kobe to earn that faith into what they do. And, you're bringing back Io back, right? Kevin Huerter played really well for you to end the season. Those type of things. Matas Buzelis is a huge part of that faith. Do they really believe that they have a star in the making of Matas Buzelis? And do they think, oh, well, he showed a lot. He could be a really good player. But we don't necessarily know if he's going to be a star yet. Now, I know Bulls fans, we go all in, and there's a lot of Bulls fans like, Matas, he's clearly a star in the future. And I'll say, hey, we've had rookies, we've had players that had really solid seasons and then have kind of fallen off. I don't think that's going to be Matas. I think looking at Matas, his mentality, how much he loves the game of basketball, how much work he's willing to put in, that there's a higher chance than not of whatever his ceiling is, he's going to hit that ceiling. But you can't always bet on that until you see more of it. And I think we saw flashes. He got to show it consistently. Matas still has tons of things that he has to work on in his game. Tons. I want to be clear here, right? So he has a lot that he has to work on in his game. But with how much that he grew from his rookie year from the beginning of his rookie year to the end of his rookie year, you tend to want to believe that he's going to be able to hit on that, because he's already developed so much within 1 year. He's already in the gym working, right? Those type of things. So you like to believe that more than not. You like to reward players' efforts with faith, right? But how much faith does AK and Eversley, or really just, I don't know what Mark Eversley does anymore. Like, I'm going to be clear. I know Mark Eversley is heavily in the contract side of things, the contract negotiations, drawing those up, but I don't know what the hell Mark Eversley does day to day. But how much the Bulls front office really believes that they have the makings of something here. Not necessarily saying that they have the players that can build everything around quite yet, right? But how much do they believe that they have something here? And I think Giddey has shown it tremendously. And, like I said, I like to hold players to their word and what they say. And Josh Giddey said the player that he was in the second half of the season is closer to who he's going to be as a player. I would love to see that. Show me that, right? And we're going to ride with you either way, right? So, but how much faith that they have into those guys to take further steps, for Matas to make another step and leap, for Kobe and Josh Giddey continue working on their chemistry and be how they finished that season in the regular season, not in that last playing game, because that was rough. But to be in that season and what they're going to do, that is important in all of this. And we'll see. Overall, I'll say this, that this is an offseason where it can be a functional offseason, meaning pretty straightforward. You draft your player in the first round, wherever you pick, you keep it pushing. I think, and all these things too could all be very quiet. Like I said that the Bulls could get some lottery luck, but hell, they can get some unluck in the lottery. They can get unlucky, and a team that's below them can jump into the top 4, and it actually pushes them from 12 to 13, right? Or the 2 teams can jump them. They can go from 12 to 14, right? That's a possibility in this draft. Make no mistake about it. It's an unlikely scenario, but hey, have we done anything or seen anything that makes us think that the Bulls have any luck in anything. So, those things are there. And I think that as much as I say that lottery luck can really change positively the Bulls' outlook in their play in the summer, dropping down 1 or 2 spots could really be the difference between you getting your guy in this draft and a team taking him before you pick, and then you're left with your second or third plan, right? So it's a lot of different maneuvers. And I think a lot of it gains some clarity on Monday in the draft lottery is the first step. And I think that step, if the Bulls just stay at 12, then you still have, you're still going to be like one of those centers are likely, if not 2 of them, to fall to 12. If you get some luck and you go up into the top 4, watch out. Because at that point, I do think a lot changes for the Chicago Bulls this offseason if that were to happen. You just can't bet on it, right? I wouldn't bet on that at all. I just think that that's not something that you really want to put a lot of hope into. But at the end of the day, whatever happens, happens. And if the Bulls get lucky, or the Bulls create their own luck by being aggressive, which is still a possibility, right? Because don't overlook the fact that the Bulls, if let's say they do stay at 12, but they think the guy that they want is going to be off the board by 10. The Bulls, if the Bulls really believe in that guy, they can move up in that draft to get that guy. They have the expiring contracts, they have the assets, they have the ability to do that. I was talking to Vaughn in the Discord, and Vaughn had mentioned like, okay, well, Haize, if you need to move up 2 or 3 spots, how would you do that? And my thought process on that was that the Portland pick is maybe your pathway to move up in this draft without needing to give up your own future first. Right now, it could be dangerous because Portland is looking to try to make the playoffs. I don't know how well they're going to be in getting that, but let's say that you want to move up 2 spots. And keep in mind, the Portland pick is still most likely to turn into a second, but there is that chance that they can turn into a first-round pick. And if it is, it's going to be right outside the lottery, right? More than likely, it'll be right outside the lottery. So the best that it could be is 15th, right? That's the best that it can be. And so if it takes that pick to say, all right, we see our guy. I'm not saying he is, but let's just say Kaman Malawak, for example, is there at number 9, number 10. And the Bulls say, we really want Kaman. We don't think he'll fall a couple more spots to get to us at number 12. Hey, whoever's there at number 10, we got this Portland pick. We'll give you our own first-round pick this year. We can throw in a veteran if you want to, if you can absorb that. We just need to get that pick. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at you going out aggressively and getting your guy. You just better be sure that they're going to fucking work out. But, we'll see what happens there. But a lot's going to be told at the draft lottery. I can't wait till we get there. But in that lottery, we will be represented by Matas Buzelis, who's going to represent the Bulls in the draft lottery. I guess you can look at him representing some luck for the Chicago Bulls because we were lucky that he fell to the Chicago Bulls at number 11, right? Like, he was projected a year before to be the number 1 overall pick. So, I think that is bringing some luck. But the Bulls missed an opportunity here to have Derrick Rose represent them in the draft lottery, man. They missed an opportunity there, in my opinion. Like, when you look at the chances that we had to the chances that we had to get the number 1 overall pick when we got Derrick Rose, if not mistaken, what was it, 1.7, 1.3% chance, something like that? We got a 1.7% chance this year. There just would have been like a lot of symmetry and it kind of poetic in a way. Not to say that it would have mattered a whole lot, but have Derrick Rose represent you, especially going to a season where his jersey is about to be retired this season. We already had the celebration of his career. His jersey is about to be retired this upcoming year, so that would have just been like perfect. But Matas Buzelis representing the Bulls in the draft lottery. Let's hope some of that energy that he comes with. Let's hope some of that luck that we had in getting him kind of rubs off on the lottery chances and odds on Monday. So we'll see what happens with that one. But we're continuing our player grades. And I had to give me an opportunity to vent some, right? And also call myself out, right? Like, one of the things here that I always say is that I'm not always right? When the Bulls signed Javon Carter, I thought that Javon Carter was going to come in here and provide some much-needed point-of-attack defense, solid passing, and three-point shooting. He's provided none of that. I even thought that, because, and it wasn't a knock on Kobe, but I thought, hey, Kobe's going to be a scorer off the bench for us. Javon Carter has the chance to start here. Look at how that went. Kobe took over that starting point guard role at the start of the 2023-24 season. He played extremely well in that season. Now he moved to the starting shooting guard this year, but Javon Carter has been a net nothing for the Chicago Bulls since we signed him. Nothing at all. Nothing. While he did play in 72 games his first year here, only averaging 13 minutes, or basically 13.9, so 14 minutes per game. In his second season here, he played only 36 games, He started one of those games. He did have one game where he was absolutely the reason why the Bulls won a game. I want to be clear there. Like, he did have that. He averaged 4.3 points per game. He shot the ball 33% from three and 37% from the field. Javon Carter's been bad. Javon Carter has gotten passed up by everyone in the rotation. Javon Carter is literally what I call him, the ball-headed hoe. So, listen, I don't even think I need to even say, I think everybody who listens to this podcast regularly knows what I'm about to grade Javon Carter an F minus. If I can give him a Z, I would, because he doesn't even need to be ranked. Javon Carter is not a good basketball player for the Chicago Bulls. Now, maybe he's better at playing off veterans. Maybe those things need to happen. Cool. Maybe that is what needs to happen. But outside this 26-point game against Atlanta, which I was wrong. We actually lost that game, right? So he wasn't even the reason why we won. We lost that game. Javon Carter has not been good, man. He's had, 4 games, I think, this season scoring in double digits. Now, he hasn't played a lot of minutes, but he hasn't earned that. Javon Carter has been bad. He's an F. He's an F minus. Like I said, everything about Javon Carter that we thought we were getting him, we didn't get. Defense, no. 3-point shooting, no. He's been bad at that. Passing, you don't even trust him enough to do that, really. Him and THT lead the back of the bench hoes is what I call them. Like, that's what they are. And so that's how I feel. And that's where I'm going to leave that at. But thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.